Suhavidvishravanaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, last class, we saw one very important thing which helps you to see what do you expect internally, whether you say it or not, out of what according to you is the outcome of understanding Vedanta. So it's not, see, if it was according to what you like, you can influence it. But if it is according to what is, doesn't depend upon what you like or what you don't like. This is how it is. So your mind has to always stay with the facts, not with what you would like, how you would like things to be. That is the orientation of the mind. This is why we say it's an objective mind. Objective mind means it is staying with what is rather than what adding your own story. So this is where you need to know what is the outcome. Is my perception, so much of this world is committed to change in experience. It's such an intrinsic kind of a need that something different has to happen. Otherwise, what's the use of knowledge? These are the things that we tell ourselves. We determine the utility in terms of change of experience. And this is the orientation that we have to give up. And this is where we say that there are some adhyasa. Adhyasa means error, erroneous perceptions, erroneous understanding of a thing, that when you correct it, the perception changes. The very perception changes. There are a certain errors that we make. When we correct the understanding, the perception, what we see remains the same. I gave the example of rope snake, which is what? Nirupadika Adhyasa. When I see a rope, perception of snake disappears. But when I correct the error that the sun is stationary, it doesn't rise in the eastern sky and sets in the western sky, I can still, next day you think the sun will appear stationary to me when I correct that error? No. Thank God. Right? I still can see the rising of the sun and I can still see the setting of the sun. What has changed? Tell me, what has changed?
The source.
Exactly. That itself, you can't discount it. Oh, so what? Hey, so what? No, that is a factor. You can't ignore it. Oh, unless my perception changes, what is the use of this knowledge? It is the truth.
Could you probably repeat what the people say, because I never get what the audience says.
Oh, you never get what they
Thank you.
Okay. And so that, what is the audience saying? Gabi, what are you saying?
My understanding changes.
My understanding changes. Okay. So understanding changes. And that is not same as before. So there is a difference. So that means you're no longer fooled by the experience. You're no longer fooled by the perception. You know the truth. You are in keeping with realities. That is the value. They don't say there is no value. Okay. Now, in this case, which of the two will apply? How do I know in case of Vedanta? Whether it is Nirupadika Adhyasa or Saupadika Adhyasa. How will I know? Not just because the teacher says, there is a kind of a condition when that occurs and when this occurs. I have to use some Sanskrit terms. I can't do without it. Not because I have passion for Sanskrit, but the understanding is dependent upon the meaning of those words. So whenever we talk about mithya, which is what dependent reality, we further divide mithya into two categories. One mithya is what we call pratibhasika, and the other mithya is vyavaharika. What is vyavaharika mithya? Vyavaharika mithya is that which has an empirical reality. For example, this box, I cannot say it's an illusion. It is there. It is empirically true. Empirically, it is existing. This is why not only I see it, Anna sees it, Tristan sees it, Yuta sees it, and I can not only everybody sees it, it has a function, as Anu says, that depending upon the width, I can decide how many things will fit. It's not an illusion. Right? So this is what we call empirically true. Empirically, this box exists. But in terms of the absolute reality, so what generally we live in this world thinking that whatever is vyavaharika, empirically true, is the reality. Now Vedanta gives us a new understanding of reality without removing the reality of this. It gives it an in-between status. It says it is a mithya, even though it is empirically true, it has a dependent reality. Entirely dependent on something else. So what is that thing which is not dependent on anything else and independently existing is what we call paramarthika. Paramarthika means that which has no dependence on anything else for its existence. But when we live in mithya world, there is another type of mithya, which is what we call pratibhasika. Pratibhasika means something which is not empirically true and still I see it. Like rope snake. Like the bag that Anna saw when we went to the castle. Empirically there was no bag, but she saw it.
And would be like the examples from yesterday evening be in this category?
Exactly.
Yes.
So, absolutely. So the examples from Matt's presentation, that the fact was, what was empirically true?
We didn't look.
That he didn't look. That was empirical reality.
Yeah.
The rest of the story was all pratibhasika. He doesn't like me, I'm no good, I'm not I'm not capable of being liked, then life is so bad, people are so rude to me. This whole additional load is all pratibhasika. Is your subjective addition to an empirical fact. Most of the time, we are not able to, as he says, distinguish between the two. Everything seems like empirically true to us. So the first level of discrimination that Vedanta wants your mind to have is what? Distinguish between what is pratibhasika and what is vyavaharika. If your mind is constantly confused between vyavaharika and pratibhasika, there is no chance it will reach paramarthika. No chance. This is why cognitive restructuring at the psychological level is one of the foundations. You can't avoid it. You can bring in certain other vision of Vedanta to give it a certain more depth by understanding the order of Ishvara, bringing Ishvara by saying there are causes within causes within causes. So people do behave the way they behave helplessly. All that you can bring. You can bring the knowledge of Vedanta, but you have no choice in removing your pratibhasika. Your mind has to reach infinity. It can't reach if it is not a mind which is a cultivated mind. And until you see your own infinity, it will not set you free. So everything is connected. So therefore, this pratibhasika mithya is what? That vyavaharika mithya is, it is, therefore I see it. Pratibhasika mithya is, I see it, therefore it is. And I am so convinced that it is until somebody like Matt comes and helps you to sort out. Sort out, hey, what is it which is a fact and which is your own story. And the story keeps on getting built up.
What would be a Fata Morgana?
Sorry?
You know this Fata Morgana? Where you see
If you're in a desert and see some water.
Ah!
exactly. How's it called? Is it?
Mirage.
Mirage. Sorry.
But this is Vyavahara, if more people see it.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's
it's
a
really
miracle.
seen.
No, not really.
See, this is where it is, here it is, we have the same thing, that the perception of the sun being stationary, everybody sees it.
That's true.
So mirage is Vyavaharika. Is it
So we
Vyavaharika?
have, because everybody, if it is the light, the effect of the light and the reflection is such that it'll give that perception to everyone.
Because it's an optical law, so
There is an optical
Yes,
law.
everybody.
Exactly, it follows optical law.
How you translate Pratibhasika?
Pratibhasika is, I see it, therefore it is.
But from translation?
And subjective.
Subjective perception.
Subjective perception. And that which enjoys, one is that which has empirical reality, that is Vyavaharika, and here it is your subjective reality. The mithya.
Yeah. But what I didn't really got is, so the Pratibhasika, one part of the Pratibhasika will stay and one part has to go? Because normally I thought Pratibhasika, the subjective projection has to go, but in this way we have to say it stays and you understand it?
No. What I say is, there is a law. In order to, we'll see which one applies where. I'm saying mithya are two types. I haven't still come to what is the relationship of these two mithya to these two. So I will tell you now. First you need to understand that there are two different types of mithya, which is what empirically both have a dependent reality. Both meet the definition of dependent reality. The snake that you see is dependent upon the rope. If there was no rope, you will not see the snake. Both have dependent reality. In one case, what it is empirically true. In the other case, it is what empirically not true. Now, let's come back here. every time you correct the pratibhasika error, which is your subjective error, your perception will change. Because snake is not there. So when you correct your error, you will now begin to see the rope. So nirupadika adhyasa is when what the mithya is pratibhasika. But every time you correct an error with reference to empirical reality, it is what sopadika adhyasa. When you correct the error that the sun is stationary, the visual perception will still remain. When you correct the error that the earth is flat, is not flat, the perception of flatness still remains. Vyavaharika mithya is what? Not your personal superimposition. That object has an empirical reality.
Neema, in case of a psychological projection on somebody, does the perception change?
See, the perception of the situation changes in the sense that now my perception of the situation is not that Matt is rude to me, like in his example. Now my perception is going to be after, let's say I go and talk to Matt, and Matt says, oh, I was Tristan. Yeah, Tristan and Matt keep getting mixed up. So that's my superimposition, my adhyasa. So now Tristan tells Matt that no, in fact I was totally drowned in my mathematical world. So then his perception will change of the reality. The fact that he did not smile will remain, but the perception that he had, it will change. He does not like me will change to what? That he was in his own world.
Is it correct that one thing is Ishvara's creation and the other thing is my creation?
Excellent. The wonderful. Wonderful. Vyavaharika is Ishvara Srishti. The sun, the moon, the planets, the forms, they are all Ishvara Srishti. The Pratibhasika is Jiva Srishti, my own perception. In case of Jiva Srishti error, my error, when I correct, the perception changes. In case of Ishvara Srishti, I can't change the sun. I can't change the body. I can't change the mind physically and make it limitless. Like every cell of mine has to feel limitless. Sounds wonderful. It's only a poem. Because if cell is limited, no imagination of yours will make it limitless. This is why it is so important to cultivate a mind which is stained with facts, realities. Your own inability to stay with facts keeps you from understanding this vision and keeps the whale going.
But in a way, Jiva projection is as how you said it. What you said? Jiva?
Creation.
Creation is Ishvara creation.
Yeah, but there is an additional addition. There is an addition
inside of Ishvara.
Exactly. So this is why it's a good thing. Even you can apply it. So for example, it's a nice, of course it is a possibility within Ishvara, but at the same time there is a distinction. So when I was at the ashram And one thing I had to ask Swamiji, I said, Swamiji, should I do this or should I do that? So Swamiji told me, instead of telling me, no, you should do this or you should not do that, he said, if you do this, there will be more of Jiva Srishti. If you do that, there will be more of Ishvara Srishti. Lovely way to explain. When you do what needs to be done, there is what? Ishvara Srishti. When you do from your perception of things, which is erroneous, like very interestingly Matt showed us yesterday, there is Jiva Srishti. You're living from your own world, which doesn't necessarily correspond to the reality, empirical reality. So this is why, if you want in every, exactly as Carl said, that any error that you remove in Ishvara Srishti, your perception will not change. Nothing to do with only Vedanta, it's to do with everything. Once you understand that, this false expectation of yours will go away. It's not only Vedanta. When a scientist understands that this is nothing but atoms, the perception doesn't change and nobody questions that. But in case of Vedanta, we all want to experience. So that means any time, there is a kind of a rule, any time there is a Vyavaharika reality, which is Ishvara Srishti. Vyavaharika means what is empirically true, which is not created by you, but it is part of what? Universal design. It is coming from Sarvajnaha Sarvashaktiman Ishvara. It can give you a perception of something, but when you correct the error, the perception remains the same, the conclusion changes. And don't say, oh, if perception remains the same, what's the use of conclusion changing? Don't ask that. Perception cannot do anything to you if you understand it correctly.
So in the wake of knowledge, the perception changes because pratibhasika drops.
Pratibhasika certainly is,
So
every time you correct your pratibhasika, so that means that whole process of pratibhasika correction is happening at so many levels before you go to the, So in fact, so that is a precondition. So for example, let's take a rope snake example, right? Now imagine that there is a rope and Vedanta is making you see the fact that this rope is nothing but atoms, nothing but particles, and it is Atma, for example, awareness. But in your perception, you are not even seeing the rope, you are seeing snake. Can your mind meet what Vedanta is saying? Cannot. Because Vedanta is talking about reality of the rope and your mind is thinking about the snake and the fear that comes from the snake. There is no matching. In order for the mind to begin to inquire into the rope, it first has to move from snake to rope. Then it can understand the rope also being mithya. So this is why the whole Yoga Shastra is to help you move from snake to rope. Whole Yoga Shastra is there. Yoga Shastra means all your personal growth, how you, the attitudes, the values, the whole thing is what? Seeing things clearly in this empirical world. Only when you are in touch with the empirical world accurately, you're more or less with Ishvara Srushti, and you're moving away from Jiva Srushti, your own addition to what is there. When that is there, then this teaching comes from where? From Ishvara alone. Don't think the teaching comes from somewhere. When you are in touch with Ishvara Srushti, then you can follow this whole teaching, and Ishvara can bless you with this Paramarthika. This is why, as he says, the whole pursuit of Brahma Vidya cannot be only about that. It is about what? Preparing yourself, removing your subjectivities in your day-to-day transactions. Then you are more or less in touch with Ishvara. And then what you then can get to know your limitations.
So Vedanta cannot take out with one wash the whole erroneous. It's not possible. Yeah?
It's not possible. This is why it is years of preparation. It is like, you tell the seed, okay, you grow into the tree. It will take its own time. Can't just happen like that.
So that's why people who say they understood the vision of Vedanta still can suffer because they didn't dissolve their pratibhasika. Is this possible? Because some people tell this, that they really got, they say they got it, and the understanding, but the suffering goes on. And is this possible or not? Logically.
See, logically, as I told you, that there is no such thing called a mind which has zero pratibhasika. There is no such mind. Two of us, see, pratibhasika means little subjective, right?
Yeah.
So let's take simple example. You love pasta, I like rice. There is an element of pratibhasika there.
Likes and dislikes.
Yeah, little bit is always going to be there. He likes sweet, I like salty. Like who was saying, Gabby. There is an element of pratibhasika. This is why we make a distinction. Swamiji makes a distinction between binding likes and dislikes, binding and non-binding. These are things that you only hear from Swamiji, to tell you the truth. Everybody says, oh, likes and dislikes. Not true. Doesn't correspond to what is. These are non-binding. It's okay. Mind will have that little bit of subjectivity, but it will not interfere in your understanding. So that means you need to have a mind which is sufficiently, not totally eliminating pratibhasika, which has sufficiently eliminated pratibhasika so that the mind can reach this reality.
But it's not as clear cut as you practice the yogas and then progress.
No.
It's like
It's together and wonderful. You're starting a virtuous cycle. You don't say, first let me do Yoga Shastra, because without which I will never understand Vedanta. You start both together.
So,
Just one second. You start both together. The more you become objective, more is the infrastructure that your brain is going to have to understand the words of Vedanta. When you come to class and when you learn Brahma Vidya about what is what, your mind is going to be able to do it. The more you understand the reality, the more it will help you in your day-to-day transactions, where you can look at things differently. And the more you do that, the next time you come to the class, more is your ability for your mind to reach the words of Vedanta. You start a virtuous cycle until one day the entire vision is totally clear as daylight. It's not fraught with any vagueness, any doubt, any error, nothing. Just clear. So that means, to answer your question, there is no such thing as absolute removal of pratibhasika. But it has to be sufficiently removed in order for the mind to reach the knowledge. Otherwise, not possible. The person may think, oh, you may have some thing of, oh yeah, some kind of expansion, and you think, oh yeah, I got it. But it's not just some matter of some click, but our Swamiji used to say that if you're sufficiently prepared, you can get the knowledge, and you, even after the knowledge, you can still continue to work on your psychological being. Still can continue. It's not like now forever this program is over. You can always be a little bit more compassionate. You can always be a little bit more understanding. You can always be a little bit more caring. Because that's all at the level of mind. You can always stretch it more. But until certain minimum thing is, Ishvara will not bless you with this knowledge. Because it's not up to you. It's not up to us. It's part of the design. Who gets what? When does the veil get removed? It's not entirely up. It is a function of our efforts. It is a function of our own kind of, investment in understanding things correctly, living our life differently. All that is a commitment.
So we could say that we have these both words. One is vairagya, and vairagya is this decoloring. So it's the first process of taking away pratibhasika, and viveka is more the clearing the understanding.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And both go together.
Both go together.
Exactly. That's a good way of saying it. Exactly. More and more decoloring, and that it will actually increase your discrimination. That's good. And the more discrimination you have, more you'll be able to discolor. So it's like a virtuous cycle that you are building.
What's the sort of key practical advice you can give for this elimination or reducing this subjective projection? I mean, you talked about it on the first talk. But is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, see, there are a lot of things that actually, that's why Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful text to study. I'm so happy some of you are doing Gita home study. It's a wonderful book. Really wonderful book. Because it's from Swamiji, and the kind of nuances he has, they are just outstanding. No other teacher will tell you. Outstanding. And that makes the difference. So this is where, in Gita, there are different frameworks that are given to help us to grow, to remove our pratibhasika. One is raga dvesha management. The other one is karma yoga. The third one is all this practice of dhyanam. Dhyanam is meditation. The fourth is this whole framework of sattva, rajas, tamas. These are all different frameworks that are given to you to help yourself to make a mind which is more and more with vyavaharika. Vyavaharika is Ishvara Srishti. Vyavaharika is more in touch with realities. These are all frameworks, even though all three gunas are part of Ishvara's creation, but in sattva there is less conflict, there is more joy. And we want that kind of a mindset. So Gita has so many different frameworks. Otherwise, you're right, you are just left alone and said, oh, all these wonderful things that I'm talking about, you will not understand till you are ready, so somehow get ready. In the Gita itself, how to get ready is talked about. And this is why we have all these things of Shama, Dama. So much, the 13th chapter of Gita is all about 20 values. It's full of that. And this is why Gita occupies such an important position in the studies of Vedanta. Not just one method, several. So, every time you remove what an empirical error, perception is not going to change. So therefore, is your body empirical or not? Yes. Is the sun empirical or not? Are the planets empirical or not? So when you remove your error, are they going to remain or not? They are going to remain.
And how I see my body myself can be quite subjective and it can be quite
Exactly.
changed.
Absolutely. So that's so true, because what Christina is saying is so right. Because not only we make this error that I am as good as the body, but body upon body, we have so many complexes based on the body. I'm fat, I'm black, I am short. So that means this is what we call pratibhasika. So much is added. So that's why sometimes even in the first class of Vedanta, if you understand, you may understand that I'm not the body because it says. But when you go out of the class, you may still feel I'm so fat. And it's a very strong feeling. So that means you have to work through all of this. Neither you can deny and say, oh, I'm not the body, so it doesn't matter, it's fat. Hey, you're a trustee. So if you want to be in good health, take care of your weight also. True. But all the complex is centered on I that you can remove. It's an intricate job. Vedanta means nuanced. Our mind is so much into black and white. He was telling yesterday, Matt was telling yesterday. We create a world, this or this. Either I'm body and totally identified with it, or I'm not the body and I'm totally indifferent to it. Both are wrong. That's why you need to make mind, your neural pathways have to become subtler and subtler and subtler to capture the reality. It's an academic exercise. This is infrastructure that your brain needs to get the picture.
So in that surgery we are doing by ourselves.
Yeah, this microsurgery, exactly. You actually move from one thing to the other, work through it till your mind reaches the reality. So this is why in this case, your vyavaharika more or less goes, I am miserable, all these because they are already taken care of. By what? Bringing in Ishvara's order. You can't move from I'm no good to I'm limitless. There is a path where you have to nurture yourself. You have to feel good about your relative individuality. You have to nourish, you have to nurture, you have to have a good self-esteem. Very much required. So this is how Ishvara has made. You can't move from kindergarten to PhD. You have to go through. Yes? Okay. Now, little bit of Sarthaka's question, and that is that it's the Shastra does recognize that at some point your mind is sufficiently prepared to capture the reality, which is already a highly evolved mind. But it doesn't mean that the mind becomes what? Perfect. So that means that the strive towards evolving the mind, it's a lovely exercise because you are kind of connected and you can continue to do it. And there is some practices which help you to what? With the mind, dwell on this reality and get rid of what? Past orientations. More and more operate from new understanding and less from the habitual way of looking at things. So this is called what we call Samadhi. Samadhi is, in this case, it's not that yoga meaning of Samadhi. Here it is Vedanta meaning of Samadhi, which is a little bit like Nididhyasana, contemplation. The contemplation, he has used yoga terms, but he gives them different meaning. He says, Savikalpaha nirvikalpaha samadhihi dvividaha hridi drishya shabdanu vedena savikalpaha punardvida. He says, the samadhi, here it is in terms of contemplation, are of two types. One is savikalpa and the other one is nirvikalpa. I will define what it means. Then it says savikalpa is further subdivided in two categories, which is drishya and shabda. So what are all these different things that we will see now? This, by the way, this contemplation you can do before the knowledge takes place and also after the knowledge takes place. It's not like only till the knowledge takes place you need to do it. Even after the knowledge takes place, people spend time with Nididhyasana. Every time you are teaching, you are also contemplating on reality. So therefore, this is what is Savikalpa Samadhi. Savikalpa Samadhi is when there are thoughts, but the thoughts generally create what? Division. You and me, different. Me and the mountain, different. So all our thoughts are of the nature that create what? Division. This is why, according to yoga, when you remove the thought, what happens? The division goes. That's why they keep on trying to remove the thoughts. But Vedanta is saying, whichever, there are two. Savikalpa Samadhi means you can have thoughts, but you can convert those thoughts for understanding the reality. Thoughts are not bad. Thoughts are not your enemies. It's not that the thought is taking you away from your true nature. Nothing is taking you away from your true nature. There is only one thing which can never go, is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So here, the very thoughts that you have, you use to know Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, or to have clarity, or to dwell upon, if you already know, to still dwell upon the nature of reality. So that is what we call Drishya and Shabda. So the thoughts you can have of, let's say, that one given thing, any form. What is our orientation? Form is the reality. What do you use your thought now to convert? You begin to see the content of that form.
See Ishvara in the coffee machine.
Yeah, both Ishvara as well as awareness, both. either you can see Ishvara, in which case your hatred towards that form is resolved. Because you see, it's not because you have to believe that, oh, because it's Ishvara there, it's wonderful. That's not what we are saying. We are saying, even if you see unreasonable behavior there, you have to understand that there is an order. There are causes within causes within causes within causes which causes that behavior. And when you understand that, then it's not that you let the person abuse you because that person is helpless. You also have to what? Draw your boundaries. But while drawing the boundaries, you are not what? Resentful. The whole emotional maturity is all very intricate. I'll give you examples because these are true examples of people who come, and when they don't understand things clearly, they get into mess. So I had this woman who came to me, she was studying in Boston, I may have said already. And she was abused by her boyfriend. And she stayed for 3 years. And she was not an uneducated woman. She was not somebody who was, she was not married or anything, that she had felt, she didn't have kids so that she felt obligated to stay with this guy. So I asked her, I said, how did you stay in the relationship which is abusive for 3 years? And she told me that every time my boyfriend beat me up, he told me, I'm so sorry, I've done it. But I've had a very traumatic childhood. And I have seen my parents fighting and my father being aggressive to my mom. And helplessly I'm doing it. I'm trying to get out of it. But I'm not able to up till now. But if you leave me, I will really fall further. She felt she had to be compassionate. She cannot let him down. She has to be there to support him. To a certain extent, it's true. But not what until a certain boundary.
And which is this
You
boundary?
have to define that you cannot hit me. That is a boundary. It's a very specific boundary. And you have to stick by that. If you don't stick by that, then the person can violate again. One day, she didn't help the situation. Do you think she was able to reform him? Not at all. One day, the fight was so big, she was so badly beaten up, she had to call the police and she had to run. So this is what I say, you can understand where the behavior is coming from. But that doesn't mean you get sucked into situation. You also have to draw your boundaries. This is also part of the order. Because ahimsa not only applies, non-violence doesn't apply only to others. It also applies to you. That is your dharma, to protect yourself also. You are part of this scheme.
You can follow this to the end. Also, for example, of your thoughts. The thought I'm too fat is a violence against yourself.
It is so much why I totally agree. The first time I went to the US, I saw the relationship that women have, especially women, unfortunately, with food. Every time they are on this table, instead of really enjoying the food, they're like, oh my God, I'll get fat. Oh my God, I have to run to the gym. Now I've eaten one dessert. It's nice to be careful. I'm not saying that you just keep on gobbling whatever you want. But at the same time, you have to have what certain healthy relationship. These are all violence. Violence towards oneself and violence towards others. All pratibhasika. So therefore, what is a situation you maybe one time give a time for the person to reform, but with very specific conditions, and you iterate those conditions. This is not acceptable. You can't do this. And if again and again, then you have to walk out. That is your boundary. And otherwise, get that person to actually seek professional help. But when you walk out, don't walk out with anger, resentment, letting down. That again is what? Whole load onto yourself. This is the trick of living with wisdom. You have to do what you have to do, and you have to let go of the additional emotional load which makes our life miserable. That is being in touch with Ishvara. Following dharma, accommodating others, all these amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantihi, arjavam. This is all these values that you cultivate within you will help you to be in what? In sync with Ishvara. So therefore, this pratibhasika removal is essential. But this whole nididhyasanam is any form that you see, you have to see, because what is the reality is, there is a form and then there is what? Atma. Atma you can't afford to misunderstand. So, any form that you see, before your eyes could only, or your understanding could only reach what? The form and its characteristics. Now, you have to stretch and you have to see what? Ishvara and Atma. Because it is there, it's fact. This is nididhyasana. What is we call drishya. Anything that you see. Initially, Swamiji would say, and I think Surya is doing it in his meditation that I see it. Anything that you see, he makes you see it is in awareness. Then later on, he says, now whichever, anything that you can think of, can you think of any given object which is outside awareness? So that means wherever my mind goes, it can never be away from what? Awareness. Whichever that object is, whether I hate it or I love it, it is not away from awareness. But because it is not away from awareness, doesn't mean I have to love it all. This is another addition that we make, which is not true. Lord Krishna was not the same with Duryodhana and Arjuna. He was different. Right? Even though he was teaching all that is here as well. That discretion, that lucidity, that objectivity is required. So this is where Drishya no Anuveda is Savikalpa Samadhi. The other one is Shabda Anuveda. What is Shabda? Shabda is you take the words of the Shastra. Shastra means the scriptures. And you contemplate on that. What is that? Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Brahman. Then you give it a thought in depth. What does it mean? What is the direct meaning of I that I have? What is the implied meaning that Shastra is trying to teach me? Tat Tvam Asi. What? I am that. You take those words of the Shastra, the scriptures, and contemplate on them. One is what? Looking at the forms and seeing what? Satchidananda Atma there. The other one is what? Taking the words of Shastra and contemplating on them. He's giving different ways to contemplate. Otherwise people don't know how to do Nididhyasana. Or you can say, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything that is here is pervaded by Ishvara. Contemplate on that. Because you are not used to thinking like that. So therefore, these types of contemplation are very necessary. There has to be repetition. The whole Vedanta Shastra is just this. Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi. And if I told you once, I have told you everything. People say, oh, this is beginner's level. Hey, beginner's level, you are telling the reality. At the intermediate level, you are also telling the same reality. And advanced level, you are also telling the same reality. Same. Nothing changes. Divide the class. True, in some ways it's true. One has to divide the class. Who's advanced, who's basic. It's true. Because you need to get used to what is being said. But at the same time, there is no difference. It's not like in the first class, I'm just preparing ground. And the teacher is telling you are that. Maybe in a simple manner, but is telling that. But in that telling, there are so many nuances which are left out. And in your mind, in order for your mind to understand the totality of it, the next time it has to be told, but with introducing slightly more nuances. Then you said, yeah, but this one I didn't hear before. Yeah, it is meant for you to really think about it. Then the third time, little bit more. The same thing if you tell, even then the capacity of your mind is what to understand already increases. But when certain new nuances are added, what happens? It's not technical, it's not scholarship. It prepares, it gives the infrastructure of the mind to become subtler in its thinking.
Sometimes I have the feeling that it's an understanding without thoughts. I can't find the thoughts, and even though I know I understood.
So that is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Okay. Don't worry. So that means the second Samadhi is what? Shabda Anuveda Samadhi. So Drishya and Shabda. They are both, you're using thoughts. Please don't think you're not thinking. Nididhyasana is, people say, oh, I don't know how to meditate because I have to have thoughtlessness. And Vedanta doesn't have that thing of thoughtlessness. lovely to have thoughts, but use those thoughts to contemplate on reality. Any object, before your eye, your understanding reached only the object and its characteristics. Now it has to reach Ishvara and Brahman. Same object. You don't need to change.
Can you give maybe a more practical example? You know, people starting meditation and their thoughts are coming.
Yes.
So how to make it more clear
Yes.
that they see the essence of awareness,
Yes.
and not the form. But if it's like a feeling or something, they go on and on in the in the story about.
Yes.
You are lost in the thoughts.
Yeah. So this is where exactly, I think one easy way to actually deal with your feelings is, one is the cognitive corrections, right? One is you have to see that, hey, I'm adding certain, this is why these kind of things are very important, right? The other method, you have to say that why, you have to question your assumptions, right? That is a subjective thing. But here, for example, any feeling that you have to say that this feeling, where does it arise? In the mind. It was not there 5 minutes ago. It has arisen now and it is going to go away. This feeling of sadness, what is the content of this feeling? Without awareness, can there be a feeling of sadness? And if awareness takes on the characteristics of sadness, sadness will stick to you forever. Does it? No. So that means you have, without denying the presence of sadness, you have to see every feeling is sustained by awareness, and awareness is free from the feeling. So once then you see the reality, it's all reality, without trying to, we generally think, oh, sadness has come, so therefore I'm not with my Swarupa. Let's remove it. So that means the sadness has two ways to deal with it. And once we had asked Swamiji, when that sadness comes, which is the right way to deal with it? Is it this, which is an empirical approach where to say, why am I sad and what are my belief systems and, what am I interpreting of the world? Or in that sadness to see what the presence of awareness, which is free from it. His answer was, you have to do both. It depends. You can't only do one. You have to do initially a lot of cognitive restructuring. Because your whole value system, your understanding of the world, all that has to be corrected. But at a certain point, you can graduate to, when you have done that sufficiently, then you can graduate to this. And the same person can sometimes use this or sometimes use that. Both are possible and both are necessary.
Worship also, devotion.
Yes.
Having some devotional practice can help.
Yes, very much so. Very much so, because there is a lot of, this is a very nice question. Can you repeat the question?
I just said, can worship and having a devotional practice help also?
Tremendously. Tremendously, if your devotion is based on understanding of Ishvara as all-pervasive. If your understanding of Ishvara is some uncle sitting out there, then it is difficult, because then you say, no, I'm devoting so much and then I'm still stuck with this. But if you understand that there is an all presence, that Sarvajnaha Sarva Shaktiman is pervading everything, and I need to bring the understanding of the all pervading presence of Ishvara in my life, that is something which is critical actually. I'll just give you one example. Our teacher used to give that example. He says, just when a child is playing and is very engaged in playing, and then after half an hour he just goes and he looks at his mother, and looking at the mother, what does it do to the child?
Gives security.
Gives security. Tremendous security. The child looks and then comes back and starts doing things. The presence of the mother gives such a sense of relaxation and security to the child. This is how it is. Unless mother is abusive, that's a different thing. The nature is designed like that. It says, as an adult, where will you go and look and get your security? The only source is Ishvara. That order, that infallible order. And the more you connect to it, more you relax. Because there is a trust that nothing unfair is going to happen to me. That is such a deep shift in your psyche. There is a trust. That trust, Ishvara doesn't need your devotion. It is you who has to undergo a major transformation. From that whole ninja, the fighter who's guarding, on the guard, and thinking that somebody else can come and, to that whole relationship of trust.
It's like the difference between nothing unfair, but there are still huge challenges which
Wonderful,
come.
right? So that means any challenge that comes to me has its own past causes. And I have to learn to respond to it intelligently. Wonderful. Where is unfairness about it? Challenges will come. There is nobody's life which is free from challenges. Nobody. Even Lord Krishna had a highly challenging life. He was born in a prison. He was taken away from his parents at a very young age. He grew up with foster parents. His own uncle wanted to kill him. A dramatic story. Not a simple your and mine story. Oh, I didn't go to this school. In spite of this dramatic story, he is enjoying himself. He's playing flute, he's very mischievous, he's playful, he's cheerful, but he's not superficial. He operates out of wisdom. Highly. This is what that whole representation of wisdom and your connection to Ishvara, that infallibility of the order gives you that relaxation, gives you that trust. That whole person of that lack, that whole thing has to undergo a change. You can only be compassionate to others if you feel this lack. If you can't feel this lack, you will not be compassionate. No matter how many workshops you attend. If you feel you are from the sense of dissatisfaction, you can never be compassionate. To become bigger, to become a contributor, you need to feel full within yourself. And to need that full within yourself you don't feel when you satisfy everything that you have achieved. The fullness you feel because you have connection with Ishvara. You understand the infallibility of whatever happens to you. From there comes the whole fullness, the whole good self-esteem, the whole proper relationship with the world. Devotional practices are key. Even though, that's the thing, many people say, oh, but if you talk about Ishvara and so many people have so many notions about Ishvara, so let's avoid Ishvara. Our job, I tell them, my job is not to please them. My job is to teach Vedanta. I don't, it's not otherwise what, I'll only be saying what you would like to hear. What will you learn? Nothing. Because everything that you think is not in keeping with reality. And if I only have to cater to what you like to hear, nobody will learn anything. I have to teach what I have to teach. And in Ishvara's order, those who are somehow ready to receive this will be here. Those who are not ready will leave. This is how things are. This is also where you have trust in Ishvara. The very first, and that is a huge journey, I tell you. Huge journey. I remember when I first started teaching, and when people would stop coming, I would feel so bad. I would feel, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Can I do something better? There is another thing, distortion is a personalization, right? Everything you take on to yourself. And the better the intention, the more hurt you get. Then you have to learn to grow. And you have to say, I can't please everyone. I have to do what I have to do. I have to give it a thought. I can take people's feedback, of course. But I can't do what you want me to do. I have to do what I have to do. Because you may not realize how important it is for you to do what I do. You don't realize. So therefore, you have to learn to let go. That trust, and then you don't have to lose confidence. Oh my God, I'm no good. All this will happen only if you have relationship with Ishvara. There is no other way. You have to have trust. And this is why before every class I pray, I don't take it for granted. Before every class I pray and I ask Ishvara to let the truth come through me without any interference from my perceptions. When it comes, you don't even know. But you have to ask for it. You can't take it for granted. You have to pray. So this is where your relationship with Ishvara is critical in your maturity. The more you can discover that relationship, more there will be quantum shifts in your growth. Quantum shifts. This is why our teacher was saying that one thing that we all of us, we studied with him, we must chant Rudram every day. These are certain forms of religious practices. He said this Vedic chant, which is Rudram, is an extremely powerful chant.
He's written a book on it. Hasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
Seen a
he's
book.
written a book on Rudram. And he said that it is capable of removing all your... Here, there is no. Dakshinamurti has that apasmara. Surya can maybe one day explain the Dakshinamurti.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. After she explains this, you can
Yeah,
explain
okay.
Dakshinamurti.
Very good.
So therefore, these, because so many obstacles, then to keep it under check, you need Ishvara's grace. There is some things that you can do, but so many unknowns are there. How are you going to take care of every unknown? So you need help. When you need help, you have to ask for help. And when you ask for help, to whom will you ask for help? Everybody is as helpless as you. There is only one place where you can ask for help, and that is Ishvara. That is prayer. Gayatri Mantra is prayer for clarity. Then we pray Asato Ma Satgamaya. Take me from untruth to truth. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Take me from ignorance to light of knowledge. And when I go to light of knowledge, what will I get? Mrityo Ma Amrutam Gamaya. From mortality to immortality. It's a prayer. Every day I pray. We pray. At night I pray. For all of us. It's not just some kind of a traditional ritual that I'm doing. I mean what I do. We all do. So this is how prayer is very important to answer your question. And your relationship with Ishvara, very important. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.